Welcome back, girls and boys. Today in English we are looking at the picture book called Are We There Yet by Allison Lester. We read that yesterday in geography, but I've included a link down in the sector notes below so that you can re-watch that picture book so it's really nice and fresh in your mind. It's a good one. It goes for about 15 minutes. So if you have 15 minutes to spare, you can either pause the video now, scroll down and watch the picture book so it's really nice and fresh in your mind, or you might like to watch this lesson first with Mrs. Topman and then watch the picture book afterwards. All right, Allison Lester is a fantastic Australian children's book author, and Are We There Yet is a great story about a family that travels in their camper van all around Australia to lots of wonderful different places. The way that Allison Lester writes her book is really interesting, and when you read it, you really want to keep turning the pages to find out what happens next. That's because she's a great writer. And today in writing, we're going to look at some of the little ways that Allison Lester keeps her audience, and audience are the people who are viewing or reading her book, really interested and flicking the pages wanting to find out what happens next. All right, first we're going to map out the events of the story. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you can use what we call a story map to help you find the beginning, the middle, and the end of a story and have a little think about what happens in each of those parts. If you pick up any picture book off the shelf of our classroom or maybe the library, you will find that every single story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And do you know what, girls and boys? When you write your own story, do you know what 3 things you need to have for it to be a very good fiction text? It will also need a beginning, a middle, and an end. In class, we might go, mirrors up, mirrors up. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Mirrors down. And you would be repeating that along with me so that we can get into our head every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay. In Are We There Yet? Let's have a little think about what happens in each of the parts of our stories and map it out behind us on our story map. We have a family in our book. Do you remember the characters' names? The characters are the people in the story. We had Billy. We had Luke. We had Mum. And we had Dad. They go in a camper van on a trip around Australia. Oh no, I need Tom's really good drawing skills right now. That looks like a car, not a camper van, but you might like to use your imagination. All right, so that's the beginning. They introduce our characters, our setting. Remember at school we think of the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, why. Who, what, when, where, why. An introduction or the beginning of a book or any kind of text should cover the 5 W's. Who are the characters in the story? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? When is our story set? Is it a modern text or is it set way back in the past? Mrs. Topman's favourite books to read are books that are set way back in the past in history. And where? Of course, our setting. Is our book set on the moon? Is our book set at the beach? Is our book set in a house? Where is the setting of our book? Okay. We then are going to think about the middle of our book. What happens in the middle of our book? Well, I know in Are We There Yet? The family goes on their adventures. They travel to places like Rottnest Island, the Great Barrier Reef, Uluru, which is a big rock in the centre of Australia. The top end, which is at the very top of Australia in the Northern Territory where the capital city is, Darwin. I wonder if you remembered that from geography. Northern Queensland, where it's nice and hot and we like to go on holidays, maybe go swimming. Surfers Paradise. And Sydney, where the Sydney Harbour Bridge is, the Opera House, Luna Park, the Powerhouse Museum. I'm sure lots of us have been to Sydney. So the middle of the book is all about the characters travelling around to all those different places and their adventures there. All right then, girls and boys, what happens at the end? If every book has a beginning, a middle and an end, what happens at the end of our text? Well, of course, the family, after all their travels, arrive back home. Here we have their house. They arrive home and their animals, Buffy and Tiger, are there to say welcome home and are very happy to have them back. All right. You are going to do some writing today. You're not going to write a story or a narrative, but you are going to write a postcard. You are going to pretend that you are one of the characters in the book, perhaps Billy or Luke, one of the children, and you are writing to your grandma, and you are telling her about some of the adventures that you have been on in your trip. To make our writing even better, we are going to have a look at some of the ways that Allison Lester, the author of this book, keeps her writing really interesting, and we are going to try and do that same thing in our writing today so that our writing is also very interesting. Allison Lester does something called 5 senses writing. Can you say 5 senses writing? I wonder, do you know what the 5 senses are? We've got listening, taste, touch, sight, eyesight or looking, what can you see, and smell. They are our 5 senses. We are so blessed by the Creator, by God, that He gave us these beautiful 5 senses to experience our world with. Imagine if you couldn't hear the beautiful bird sounds. Imagine if you couldn't touch soft things or feel the cuddles from your mummy and daddy. Imagine if you couldn't taste the delight of chocolate sauce on your tongue, your senses. Imagine if you couldn't see all the beautiful colours of the world. And imagine if you couldn't smell mummy's yummy cooking at night wafting up to your room. They are our 5 senses, the 5 ways that we can interact with and experience the world. We can either see it or hear it or touch it or taste it or smell it. There's 5. Good writers write about their 5 senses. They don't just say, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. Instead, they say, we saw this, we heard this, we smelt this, it tasted like, it felt like. They describe their experiences using their 5 senses. I want you in your writing today, your postcard that you're about to write about the 5 senses. What did you smell? What did you see? What did you taste? What did it feel like? What did it sound like? Because Allison Lester uses 5 senses writing in her book. Are we there yet? Let me draw out some of the sentences from the text for you where Allison Lester has used 5 sense writing. Instead of just saying, we did this, then 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 we did this. That would be so boring. Imagine reading a book like that. You'd be going, oh, is this book finished yet? It is so boring. Just like you wouldn't want to read a boring book, we don't want to write a boring book because we don't want to bore our readers or our teacher or our mum and dad who have to read our writing. We want to wow them with our writing. So let's use 5 sense writing to wow our readers with our writing. Allison Lester, instead of saying we did this, then we did this, she writes we made. So using their hands, using the sense of touch, she starts her sentence with the 2 words, we made. She writes, we made letters with our shadows at Murphy's haystack. Not, then we saw Murphy's haystack. No, she describes what they did there, how they used their body and their sense of touch to experience Murphy's haystack. Another way she starts a sentence is she writes, we saw. S-A-W. Saw. With our eyes, the sense of sight. What did we see? She writes, we saw the last autumn leaves fluttering like flags on the grapevines of the Barossa Valley. What a beautiful sentence that is. I wonder if you can get your writing to sound beautiful and flow like poetry. Another way she starts a sentence, we hiked. Now you want touch. The sense of touch is not just with your hands. Am I touching this object? Yes, but I'm not using my hands. I'm using my elbow. When I'm walking, I wonder what's touching them. My feet are touching the earth. When I'm sitting, I wonder what's touching. We can touch, experience the sense of touch with all different body parts. So hiking is experiencing the world through touch as they stomp and they walk through a new environment. Allison Lester wrote, we hiked between the round red domes. I hear some alliteration there, round red, both starting with that sound. Good writers also use alliteration. Another way Allison Lester starts her sentence is, we floated. Another verb, something they are doing, just like hiked. And another experience of feeling. Because we floated gives you a sense of them feeling the buoyancy, feeling that pleasure of floating on water. She writes, we floated down the Catherine Gorge below towering ochre cliffs. Allison Lester weaves her words together like poetry. And the final example I'm going to give you today of her 5 sense writing is she starts a sentence with, we ate. A-T-E, we ate. This is the sense of taste. And she wrote, we ate satay prawns and drank mango smoothies as we watched the sunset in Darwin. In fact, that combines the taste sense and the sight sense because she's watching a beautiful sunset. So that sentence has both senses. I challenge you now, your writing task for today is to imagine that you are a character in the book Are We There Yet? Perhaps Billy, perhaps Luke, and write a postcard from their perspective to Grandma explaining what you did today, but instead of just writing, then we did this, then we did this, next we did this, I want you to try and start some of your sentences with 5 senses writing. We saw, we tasted, I felt, it sounded like, it tasted like. That is your challenge for today. I'm looking forward to seeing a photo of your 5 senses writing on Seesaw.